Today we're going to talk a little bit about the design build process here at Brian Kyle's.
What's the thing that you like the most?
I really enjoy putting together patios and outdoor living spaces for clients, primarily paver patios. I think I've learned a lot since I've been with the company and, developed a new system in learning a CAD program, and that really helps me present to the client what their space is going to allow them to do. One thing that I like that you taught me is to always make sure to throw in patio furniture, grills, maybe some lounge chairs, just making sure to let the client know that their space is going to allow them to do what they've asked us for in that certain area.
So when a client calls in and says, hey Kate, we're thinking about doing something in our backyard, what kind of information do you like to get from them, before you go meet with them?
I guess it's kind of tricky sometimes to get too much information from them. I think the in-person meeting really helps solidify what it is that client wants. A lot of times people call in and they think they know what they want and they think they know what they need, but ultimately that project will really start to develop when you get to meet in person and kind of walk their space with them. You learn any nuances that they may have. They have little kids, they have pets that they need to let in and out. They want to be able to grill outside, or they want to make sure that they have some shade because their space is, let's say it's a newer development and all of the trees are missing. So I think that the best way to learn from a client what their needs and wants are is the in-person.
An in-person meeting? Mm-hmm. Do you like it when you go to a meeting and they have all these pictures on Pinterest or things pulled out, or do you like it when they have really no idea what they want? What do you
love
prefer?
It when a client has some photos printed out. It doesn't necessarily have to be the layout that they're looking for, but if they say, hey, we really like the look of this paver, or we really like this stamped concrete patio, and we've heard that it could potentially be more cost effective for us, or we love our neighbor's wall. If you can take the time to walk 4 houses down, they have this really cool, wing wall that we really like. Different things like that. If they have certain elements of the project that they definitely want to incorporate or try to incorporate, I think that's great.
Mm-hmm. So that helps you kind of create the vision for the backyard for them,
Correct.
The front yard, or does it just helps you determine what their tastes?
It definitely helps determine taste. Color concepts are always a big thing, and I think that's, aside from the ultimate layout of the project, the color concepts and the schemes are a huge part of the project, and sometimes that can take longer than you'd like it to. That could take a couple of meetings. One thing that I really like to do is take clients down to a rep that provides all of our, or most of our hardscape materials, and then they really get to touch and feel and see and visualize their project a little bit more once they're actually holding that material and seeing that it's good quality.
Yeah, that's really cool that we have a supplier that allows us to go into their to their office, and we could actually pick out the countertop material and lay it next to a paver.
Correct.
And match it with either a stone veneer or a dry lay unilock wall. I feel like sometimes that helps some people, like you mentioned, just start to touch and feel. And it's amazing we have a color that we feel like we like, and then when we start putting all these different products next to each other, it's like we make a change.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, it's great. I do it all the time. Like you said, we have this vendor right up the road, and take an hour and meet your client down there and just let them look at all the different options that may be available that are within their pricing structure and their budget.
Mm-hmm. So when you meet with somebody, so I'm showing you a million different pictures of all the different things I found on Pinterest or, on social media or my neighbor's house, and you're taking all this information in. How do you go about processing it to try to figure out what it is that they truly want? Because I've been in this situation before where people will show me like one fireplace, right? And it's built out of stone veneer, and then they'll show me another fireplace, and it might be something taken from a picture out of California where it's like a stucco. And to me, I'm looking
Right.
at this saying, oh my gosh, this is stone veneer, or this is simple and clean. What is it that you like about that?
I think that's a really great part of the process, because that allows us to become the professionals that we are and steer our clients towards what's reasonable for our climate that we have, and frankly, what's reasonable within their budget. It's at that point our job to make the client aware of these different products, and hey, you showed me this and I see that you like this, but then you're showing me this and it's quite different. What are the aspects of each one that you really do like? And maybe we can find something that's comparable, that's going to give you the benefit of both and the aesthetic of both. But like I said, that allows us to step up as the professional, which in turn really helps you build trust with your client, because then you can show them that you know what you're doing, you're knowledgeable about different products and things like that.
Do you find it's easier when someone knows kind of a target of what they want to spend, and they can kind of say, hey, Kate, we're looking at spending about $80,000 this year, and, these are the pictures of all the things we found, my husband and I, and do you find that to be beneficial so you could help guide them down a path, or does that not
Absolutely.
really matter?
Yeah, I think it's imperative that a client is prepared to share with you their budget. Sometimes we may have that appointment where people know what they want, but they have no idea what the cost is. And that's another opportunity, again, for us to become that professional in our industry and say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, what you've told me that you want is, within this ballpark range of pricing structure. And that's when you get to sit back and just listen to your client talk and read their eyes and their body language. And they may say to you, well, that's way out of our budget. And then you can start to narrow down what ultimately they were thinking. At first, it may seem like you're just trying to get a number from them, and you're going to hit that number and that's all. And it makes people a little bit shy and feel a little bit intimidated if you just say right off the bat, hey, what's your budget?
Yeah.
But if they're telling you the things they want and you can tell them a ballpark range of what they want, it tends to guide them a little bit more towards, hey, maybe we could shave this portion of the project, and then you can get a better feel for what ultimately they do want to spend.
So generally you spend, 45 minutes to about an hour walking around someone's house and listening and trying to figure out what it is that they want?
Yeah, I would say at least an hour. Sometimes it takes longer, and if it does take longer, that's fine. It just may mean that they haven't fully prepped themselves for the meeting, or they don't fully understand what it's going to take to produce what they're asking us. But yeah, an hour is about right.
And then generally we're walking out of that meeting with a sense of maybe a price range, like, hey, we could be on the low side at this price and at the high side of this price. And then what's your next step?
So yes, definitely. I like to leave that first meeting with a general pricing concept. And from there, we would enter into a design agreement with the client. It's a basic concept. Myself or you would apply the amount of time that it's going to take us to put together their general concept of their project and the time that we are going to invest in it, and we bill that client a design fee at an appropriate rate.
Remember the first time I showed you the shopping list?
Yes.
What did you think about that?
I think it's wonderful. I use it. I use that all the time now, and the shopping list is, for those of you who don't know, and we share this with clients, hey, I'm going to come up with a shopping list for you. And the client may have said, we need an outdoor space that allows us to have formal dining, a sitting area with some lounge chairs, a fire pit or fireplace, some lighting. So what that shopping list allows us to do is break it down into separate components. So you may have your paver or your flooring material, and then your structure, and then your fireplace, and then a line item for any electrical and any plumbing for gas if you want to use a gas for your fireplace. So it allows you to give a range for separate components rather than just saying to your clients, hey, this is going to be $120,000. It really pulls them into the project and understands what each separate item may be in the range of.
Do you think it helps out? So, in the back of my mind, I say, Kate, I want a fireplace. And, you're visualizing, maybe one price, $45,000. And they might be sitting there thinking of the $25,000 fireplace that, we put a gas insert in and, it might only be 12 or 15 feet tall. Do you find that beneficial when you say, hey, I could build a fireplace, and if we use this material, it might be this price. And if we do, a natural stone with, limestone or a natural wood beam going across, that it could be way over here. Do you find that helpful when you're sitting down with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of my favorite things that you and I do is when we have our little four-legged sales calls.
Those are the
there
best.
have been times when I've ran into tricky situations where I just need a second opinion because the client's budget is $80,000 and what they're asking me for is $130,000. So you and I get to sit down together or even go to the property together and kind of brainstorm of how we can make the project happen and give them most or all of what they want within their budget by choosing different material, choosing, whether it's a true masonry fireplace or not, or an insert. So those are some things that really help me out a lot too.
Do you think our jobs became easier with technology and SketchUp over the last couple of years?
Absolutely. When I first came to Brian Kyle's, I was hand drafting still. And in the past few years that I've been here, I've learned a CAD program. It speeds up the process for me, and it allows me to make quick changes. I did a change on a project already this morning, and it's only 9:45 in the morning. Sent it over to the client, and it's pretty much approved. So it really speeds up the process of things. And from there, being able to take that image, the CAD layout, and dump it into a 3D software and show that to the client is just, it's night and day different when they get to see it in real time and basically get to walk through their project and see it in a 3D imagery. Really helps the clients visualize it a lot better.
I think that was a huge disconnect for so many years. I remember meeting with clients and I'd have a black and white drawing, and I'd be sitting down with them, and it's a visual in my head, and I'm really passionate about it, and I'm explaining it to them, and I feel it was very challenging for me to share that vision, right? Because we're artistic, and sometimes the clients, we visualize it, but they're just looking at it like a little box, and they're
Correct.
like, wow.
Yeah,
so
it makes it really difficult for the client to visualize when it's just that CAD rendering that's just flat squares and circles and things like that, and we can elevate it in our mind and see the vision, but oftentimes the client can't. So giving them those 3D renderings from a SketchUp program is another thing that really helps speed along the process for us and the client.
I think it's really cool because the client can come here. We have the screen going with their backyard or their front yard, whatever it is. And, we've got the drawing laid out, the shopping list all laid out, and all the materials, and we just walk them through it. It's like they look in, they're like, oh, look, that's my backyard right over there.
Yep.
And that's awesome.
Agreed.
And then we can walk through it with them.
Brian, when you meet with a client till the time that you may actually start a project and start breaking ground on something, can you just share a little bit more of how that time lapses and how much time it takes to meet with the client, get your permits, get everything in place, order material that you need to actually start a project?
That's a great question, because on some of the bigger projects, like where you have like a fireplace or you have permitting or variances you have to go through, like when a lot of these outdoor structures we build for people, right? That if everyone knows what they want, first time around, there's no modifications, no changes. Basically it could take us about 3 to 4 months to draft up the drawing, to make sure it's going to meet city approval. Then we're taking it, we're getting the architectural drawings, because we can't submit anything to permits within a city if we don't have a working drawing. And then, basically at that point, it's usually the city. If we need a variance, we have to submit by certain dates, right? And sometimes we might get the drawing done, client signs off on it, and we may have missed the cutoff. So I think...
So what would that variance be? Give an example.
So
that could really delay a project if you have to ask the city for a variance.
a lot of times houses today are built within the building setbacks, right? So when someone wants to extend onto the back of their house an outdoor living area that has a roof on it, we are most of the time going beyond the building, the setback line. Mm-hmm. So we have to, I guess, seek permission, right, to go beyond that line. And most of the time it's accepted. It's just we have to make sure that we're doing it the right way. Mm-hmm. And the city wants to make sure that we're not just building this mammoth patio in the backyard.
Sure.
There's landscaping and all these other good things that, protect the neighbor's interest,
sure.
but, keeps the property value. I've seen those sometimes. Well, when you get to the lake and you start dealing with, Army Corps and things like that, some of those things can take over a year.
Sure.
But most of the time, it usually takes us about 4 to 6 months from the time, we may have met a person to the time that the permits and the drawings and everything is all set in stone and we could actually, kind of break ground on some of the larger projects, right?
Sure.
But, if there's not any structures or things like that, I think it usually takes us probably about 2 to 3 months to probably turn around a design, finalize it, make sure all the material is good, and hit our construction schedules. I think that's probably the timeline. So you and I think we always strive, like right now. This is March. I mean, we're basically into July and August right now with our construction schedules.
Correct.
So you and I in July would try to be working on spring of 23. And it's not, because we're slow. It's just because those are the steps that we have to take,
Mm-hmm.
Meet a client and we come up with the ideas, the concepts, and, we do the drawings, and by the time we get approval on things, that's just naturally how long things take to do.